Ladies and gentlemen, hey, listen up. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm here to tell you the truth most people won't say out loud. You see, there's a certain kind of man who doesn't beg for attention, doesn't chase, and doesn't lose sleep over being liked. He's not cold, he's focused. He's not arrogant, he knows his worth. Today, I'm going to break down the 5 secret mindsets that these men live by. And let me warn you, once you hear them, you won't look at dating, self-worth, or even yourself the same way again. So if you're ready to stop chasing and start attracting, let's get into it. High-value men don't chase, they attract. This mindset is foundational and sets the tone for how a man navigates his relationships, his self-worth, and the world around him. When a man truly understands his value, he doesn't feel the need to prove it to others, especially not by chasing women for validation or attention. He operates from a place of inner confidence that naturally draws people to him. It's not arrogance, it's certainty, a certainty that who he is, what he offers, and where he's going is enough. And if someone doesn't see that, it's their loss, not his. This mindset begins with understanding the difference between chasing and attracting. Chasing is rooted in lack. It implies that something or someone outside of you holds the key to your happiness or fulfillment. It's desperate energy, and people can feel it instantly. Attraction, on the other hand, comes from abundance. It's the byproduct of being in alignment with your values, your goals, and your purpose. When a man is locked in on his mission, building his life brick by brick, he radiates a kind of confidence that makes people stop and take notice. He doesn't have to chase, he becomes a magnet. Men who chase are usually caught in the loop of external validation. They measure their worth based on how many women are interested in them, how much attention they get, and whether or not they can impress others. But a high-value man doesn't need that. His validation comes from within. He sets his own standards, meets them, and keeps raising the bar not for others, but for himself. And because of that, he naturally draws in the kind of people who respect and admire that self-discipline and clarity. It's not about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about genuinely not needing the attention to feel whole. That's a huge difference. When a man knows he has options, when he knows he's building something meaningful, he's not glued to his phone waiting for a reply. He's not bending over backward to win someone over. He's focused on becoming the best version of himself, and that energy is magnetic. Women, and people in general, are drawn to those who move with intention and purpose. This doesn't mean he doesn't pursue or express interest. The key is he doesn't chase. Pursuing something or someone from a grounded, self-assured place is completely different from running after something out of fear or insecurity. The energy is calm, confident, and composed. A high-value man observes, evaluates, and then decides whether something aligns with his path. If it doesn't, he lets it go without drama. That's power. High-value men know that desperation kills attraction. The moment you need someone to respond a certain way to feel good about yourself, you've handed over your power, and they don't do that. They don't give anyone the power to control their mood, their confidence, or their direction. They take full responsibility for their life, and don't allow temporary emotions to dictate long-term decisions. This mindset also means having standards and boundaries. A man who doesn't chase has already decided what he will and won't tolerate, and he's willing to walk away from anything that compromises that. That alone creates attraction, because nothing is more compelling than someone who refuses to settle. He knows what he brings to the table and is not afraid to eat alone. That energy says, I'm not for everyone, and that's perfectly fine. Ultimately, the man who doesn't chase women is the man who is focused on building a life so rich, so full, that the right person naturally wants to be a part of it. He doesn't need to convince or persuade. He just lives in alignment, and the right people gravitate toward that. Self-validation is the standard for men who never chase women. They understand that waiting for someone else to approve of them is a losing game. Their sense of worth is not based on compliments, attention, or validation from others. It's grounded in who they know themselves to be. This inner certainty becomes their emotional anchor, keeping them stable regardless of who comes or goes from their lives. They don't wake up wondering if someone likes them. They wake up focused on liking themselves more, doing better than yesterday, and moving closer to their goals. When a man is rooted in self-validation, he no longer acts out of fear of rejection. Rejection becomes neutral. It's simply data, not a personal attack. He doesn't take things personally because he knows that someone else's inability to see his value doesn't decrease his value. He's not dependent on someone else's attention to feel significant. This mindset makes him mentally bulletproof. His energy is solid, grounded, and consistent because it's not being tossed around by the opinions or decisions of others. Most men who chase do so because they're trying to fill a gap inside themselves. They think that if they can win her over, get the attention, or prove themselves, they'll finally feel enough. But men who operate from self-validation have already decided that they are enough, whether anyone sees it or not. They've stopped seeking approval and instead started building a life that they themselves are proud of. That shift changes everything. When you no longer need validation, your actions become sharper, cleaner, and more authentic. You stop performing and start being. This mindset also impacts how a man handles dating and relationships. A self-validated man doesn't ask, "Does she like me?" He asks, "Do I like the way I show up? Do I like the life I'm building? Does this relationship align with my values?" He's not driven by the fear of being alone, and because of that, he's free to choose wisely. He's selective, not because he's playing hard to get, but because he understands that his time, energy, and attention are not free. They're valuable, and only those who respect that get access. Men who rely on external validation are usually inconsistent. When they get attention, they feel on top of the world. When they don't, they feel worthless. It's a roller coaster, and people can sense it, but men who validate themselves project stability. Their mood doesn't shift based on who texts back or who compliments them. They have emotional discipline, and that kind of control is rare and attractive. It signals strength, maturity, and self-respect. Self-validation also requires self-awareness. You can't truly validate yourself unless you know who you are. That means asking hard questions, facing flaws, doing the work, and growing. It's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. High-valuemen do that work consistently. They challenge their own beliefs, hold themselves accountable, and seek growth for their own sake. Not to be more likable, but to be more authentic. That's where true self-respect comes from. Not from pretending to be something, but from doing the work and earning your own approval. This mindset also leads to freedom. When you don't need anything from anyone, you're free to show up fully as yourself. You're not adjusting your personality to fit in. You're not dimming your light to make others comfortable. And you're not molding yourself into what you think someone wants. You become unapologetically you. That kind of authenticity is magnetic because it's rare. Most people are so busy trying to be liked that they forget who they are. But a man who validates himself remembers exactly who he is, and that certainty shows in every interaction. Emotional detachment from outcome is a core mindset of men who never chase women. It doesn't mean they're cold or unfeeling. It means they've trained themselves to care more about their actions than about results they can't control. They've let go of the obsession with winning someone over or getting a specific reaction. Instead, they focus on showing up authentically, doing what aligns with their values, and letting the chips fall where they may. This detachment gives them an edge because it makes them immune to the emotional highs and lows that come with seeking constant approval or affirmation from others. When a man is emotionally attached to the outcome, he operates from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. He overthinks every message, overanalyzes every response, and starts molding himself into what he thinks the other person wants. That energy is heavy, and it creates pressure in every interaction. People can feel it even if it's unspoken. It creates neediness, and nothing repels faster than a man who appears emotionally dependent on how someone else responds. High-valuemen step away from that mindset entirely. They care about connection, yes, but they don't stake their worth or identity on how things turn out. This detachment allows for clarity. When you're not emotionally invested in the outcome, you see things for what they are instead of what you hope they'll become. You're not blinded by desire, fantasy, or expectation. You're rooted in reality. If someone's energy is inconsistent, you notice. If the connection lacks depth, you accept it. You don't force what's not mutual. You don't chase what's not choosing you. That level of emotional discipline creates peace because it removes the constant inner conflict of trying to make something work that's not aligned. Men who detach from outcomes also move differently. They don't second-guess themselves every time they speak. They're not trying to be liked. They're just being honest. That truth, spoken without fear, becomes one of their most powerful traits. They know they have nothing to prove and nothing to lose by being authentic. If someone resonates with it, great. If not, they move forward without emotional chaos. That's not indifference. It's emotional maturity. They understand that their job is to stay true to themselves, not to manipulate or perform for the sake of approval. This mindset also builds resilience. When you don't attach emotionally to outcomes, rejection no longer feels personal. It becomes feedback. A closed door doesn't shake your foundation. It simply redirects you. You no longer spiral over what could have been or waste energy trying to fix things that were never meant for you. You recognize that not every connection is meant to last, and not every opportunity is meant to be pursued. That wisdom allows you to release quickly and pivot with confidence. You stop clinging to things that drain you and start investing in what energizes you. Emotional detachment also allows space for presence. When you're not projecting into the future or obsessing over how something will turn out, you're more grounded in the moment. You listen more deeply, speak more intentionally, and engage with sincerity rather than strategy. You're not playing games or trying to win someone. You're simply connecting. Ironically, this presence makes you more attractive because it's rare. Most people are too distracted by their own insecurities to really show up fully. But the man who's detached from outcomes brings a calm, steady energy that stands out. This approach isn't about indifference. It's about internal strength. It's about building a life and identity so solid that no single moment, person, or reaction can destabilize it. You're not ruled by how others respond. You're not chasing emotional highs or avoiding emotional lows. You're steady, grounded, and focused. You've learned to let go of control, trust your process, and walk away when something no longer serves your growth. Scarcity mindset is a trap that keeps men chasing, settling, and doubting their worth. It convinces them that opportunities are limited, that women are rare, and that if they don't act fast or hold on tightly, they'll miss their one and only chance. This mindset is deeply rooted in fear, and fear distorts reality. Men who operate from scarcity see every interaction as high stakes, every rejection as a loss, and every woman as irreplaceable. This leads to overinvesting emotionally, trying too hard to impress, and tolerating behavior they normally wouldn't just to avoid being alone. The scarcity mindset is not only disempowering, it's exhausting. You men reject scarcity in every form. They understand that the world is abundant, not just in relationships, but in opportunities, connections, and growth. They know that no single person defines their future or determines their happiness. If one relationship doesn't work out, they don't spiral into hopelessness. They move on with the understanding that better alignment is always possible. This belief frees them from desperation. They don't chase because they trust that what's meant for them will meet them halfway, without force, without begging, and without emotional gymnastics. Men stuck in scarcity often stay in unhealthy or unfulfilling dynamics simply because they fear there might not be anything better. They tolerate being ignored, disrespected, or emotionally manipulated because they believe walking away means being alone forever. That fear makes them cling to people who are not aligned, just to avoid an uncomfortable truth. They haven't built a strong enough relationship with themselves. High-value men flip this. They'd rather be alone with peace than partnered in chaos. They don't fear being single because they've learned how to enjoy their own company, build their own life, and thrive independently. This abundant mindset isn't just about believing there are plenty of fish in the sea. It goes deeper than that. It's about trusting that your value doesn't decrease based on who chooses or rejects you. It's about knowing that you bring something real to the table: character, ambition, clarity, and that not everyone will recognize it, but the right ones will. Scarcity whispers, "You're not enough." Abundance answers, "You're more than enough for the right person." That internal dialogue is what separates men who chase from men who attract. When a man breaks out of scarcity, he becomes powerful because his decisions are no longer controlled by fear. He doesn't stay in conversations that drain him. He doesn't overextend himself trying to prove his worth. He doesn't abandon his values just to get attention. Instead, he operates with calm certainty. He knows what he brings, and he knows what he wants. And because he's not afraid of losing anyone, he sets boundaries without hesitation. That kind of clarity commands respect, and it repels anyone who's not aligned with his vision. Scarcity also creates a mindset of competition where there doesn't need to be one. Men start comparing themselves to others, trying to outdo the next guy, believing that they're constantly in a race to prove themselves. You men remove themselves from that race entirely. They're not trying to be better than anyone else. They're trying to be better than who they were yesterday. That internal focus makes them more grounded and less reactive. They don't panic when someone pulls away, because they're not measuring their worth by other people's behavior. Abundance allows for patience. It allows for discernment. It gives men the power to slow down and choose with intention instead of reacting from fear. It helps them see dating as a process of alignment rather than a desperate search. It builds resilience, because when you believe in abundance, a setback doesn't mean the end. It just means redirection. And most importantly, it brings peace, because when you're no longer controlled by the fear of missing out, you stop chasing what doesn't serve you and start building what truly fulfills you.